Sound of Freedom's good. Yeah, Sound of Freedom's definitely really good. You guys should watch that, especially you guys with kids. That's.
I absolutely love the fact that Tua Tagovailoa gave a shout out to the movie Sound of Freedom. It tells me he understands the plight of these kids who are being trafficked all around the world and how it has to stop. If you haven't seen this movie yet, I'm telling you, you need to go see Sound of Freedom. And like Tua said, especially if you have children or grandchildren, this movie features and highlights what has been happening to kids around the world for quite some time. It's been a hidden secret. People don't like to talk about it. They try to tell you it's a conspiracy theory. They try to pretend like it's not happening. They try to tell you it's some sort of right-wing movement. As far as I'm concerned, kids are not right-wing or left-wing. Kids are kids. We have to preserve their dignity. We have to preserve their safety as parents, as grandparents, as uncles, cousins. What's going on with kids in America and around the world cannot be tolerated any longer. We have to find a way to come together at minimum on this issue and not be divided. It's not fake. It's not something that somebody is making up. These kids are being harmed. These kids are being abused. And the more people decide to try and look away and pretend as though it's not happening, the worse it is. I saw this movie with my wife. I am a father, I am a grandfather, and I was brought to tears. I knew it was happening. We all knew it was happening. I remember growing up and seeing, faces on the back of milk cartons and saying, what's going on? I've never seen these kids before. And we just never got any follow-up the entire time through the educational system. Nobody ever told us what was going on with these kids. And then when we find out, it's a stark reality that people are actually buying and selling kids. That's atrocious. That should be met with a death sentence. There's a line in the movie that really got to me, and it's regarding how profitable and lucrative the trafficking market has become. So the criminals have realized, hey man, there's a lot more money to be made dealing in kids than dealing in drugs. The line says you can sell an ounce of whatever one time. You can sell a kid 5 times per day for 10 years. Let that sink in. You can sell a kid 5 times per day for 10 years. That alone should compel you to go see Sound of Freedom. That alone should compel you to dig in and learn more about what's happening to kids around the world. It's not funny. It's not something to just cast off on Twitter and say people are nuts. It's really happening. I challenge any of the nuts on Twitter who over and over again try to say this isn't happening to sit down with a kid who's been trafficked. Look that kid in the eye and tell him or her that what they experienced is fake. I challenge you. I compel you. Stop with the nonsense. This is really happening, and it's happening in America. Don't think for an instant that it's not happening here. It is happening here, and it's happening in the higher end of our society as well. Probably for the most part, because those are the ones who can afford it. Don't be blind to child trafficking. This movie, Sound of Freedom, and I hope they do some sequels to it, and they show more and more about what's going on in politics and big business and, the parts where people don't want to discuss. That's not a conspiracy theory. Do your homework. Look into this. Take some friends. Tua and a bunch of the guys are on break. And they had a couple days off and they went to go see the movie. And he saw it and said, wow. If you got kids, go see this movie. So I applaud Tua Tagovailoa for actually talking about this movie. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan and you're a Tua Tagovailoa fan, now you've got your impetus to get out there and talk about this movie. Go see it and then talk about it. I'm very, very hot on this topic. It means a lot to me. Even before I saw the movie, this has been a hot button for me for quite some time. My wife has done volunteer work with trafficked kids. She has seen them up close and personal. She has heard their stories. It's horrific. It's not fake. It's not a conspiracy theory. If you're a fan of a man who plays football, be a fan of kids who are being trafficked. Get out there, go see the movie, take some friends, buy some tickets, pay it forward, do whatever you got to do. Go see Sound of Freedom. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a right-wing fallacy. It is really happening, and anybody who tries to tell you otherwise, you better be suspect of their motives. I'm telling you that right now. If somebody is telling you that this isn't happening, that it's all conjecture, that it's a made-up story and kids aren't being trafficked, be very, very suspect of them. You may even want to distance yourself from them, because you'd have to ask yourself, why is it that people don't want this talked about? Why are you out there on Twitter and everywhere else telling people not to go see the movie, that it's fake? What would drive you? What would be your driving motivation to stop people from seeing what's going on? That alone, I'm telling you, might make you distance yourself from some people. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is really happening. These are God's children. And as the movie says, they're not for sale. Let me know what you think. Tua, hats off, buddy. Thank you very, very much for putting that out there. Talk to you guys soon.
There's been a movie like this ever. It's called Sound of Freedom. It's a movie about children who are trapped in a world that no one wants to look at. But the only way we're going to help them is if we have the courage to look. Now, right now, there are an estimated 2 million children being trafficked around the world. First step to helping them is getting people to hear their story. The vast majority of people agree that child trafficking is awful, but the vast majority of people also don't do anything about it. And it's mostly because they don't know what to do. Now you do. You can go to a movie theater and see this film. We all need to hear the stories of these kids. It's not easy, but I'm asking you to have the courage. A line is being drawn in the sand, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to decide if this is a cause that we're willing to fight for. Because going to the theater and seeing this movie is a statement. It's a statement that you're willing to learn about this dark reality. It's a statement that you are not sitting on the sideline on this issue. It's a statement that you are in this fight to get rid of child sex trafficking. Let's put political agendas aside and rally around a common cause. Let's rally around the cause of keeping our kids safe. I'm not asking you to go out and fist fight traffickers. Although if it was your kid, I'm sure you would. But I'm asking you to have the courage to watch this movie, because this movie is the start of something bigger than all of us. It's the start of people understanding this issue. It's the start of people taking a stand and saying, no more, no. You cannot touch my child, our children, because they are ours. If millions of us flock to the theater, that sends a very loud signal to the world that we know what's happening and we're not going to be silent anymore. We need to shine such a bright light on this issue that we can no longer be ignored. Every parent and every teenager in America should see this movie, When We Became One Nation Under God, and the start of the end of child trafficking all over the world. Because the only way we're going to make a difference is if millions of people see this movie, if millions of people will finally look, and if millions of us all come together and walk towards the sound of freedom.